Hey there, it's Chris, and welcome back to week 4 of our Spartan Ultra training session, where last time we tried something new. We tried doing this while going for a run, which was really interesting. It may have worked, may not, I don't know, but every now and again it's worth trying something new. We're back in our studio slash my basement again doing this, but last time, last time was all about what is Zone 2 training and how can it help us versus not help us in our goal of doing one of these larger ultramarathon type distance races. And this time, I want to spend the first half of the video kind of expanding on that as one final. I know you're probably sick of doing more running videos. I'm thinking next time we will go more into ultra kind of specific stuff and obstacle course kind of stuff, but we, we do need to cover our bases first. So one more running session here. We're going to go over real quick a recap of last time, and then how do we actually apply this to our workout schedule as we go forward. So just as a real quick recap from last time, again, you can go back to that or you can look at other sources online to get more information on this. But as we intensify the work that we do, that we perform, say in the case of running, as we go from like slow, really slow kind of jogs to just kind of starting to run, our body is burning off fats to produce energy. As we start going faster, it switches over, starts burning off glucose reserves to produce the energy we need to keep doing more intense workouts and more intense running sessions, intense work. So when we're burning off fats, that's great. Once we start burning off the glucose, our body produces lactic acid as a waste product. And really the two systems in our body we're trying to focus on is our circulatory system, get the heart pumping more, getting the heart stronger, get the veins, capillaries, arteries, and all that kind of working for us. Then within the cells, we have the mitochondria, which is our powerhouse, which we actually use to create more work. The more mitochondria we have, the better ability we have to create work and make life easier for us as we do more work. So as we go faster, we get our heart pumping, which is great. We get our circulatory system going, which is great. We're creating these mitochondria, which is great. However, the lactic acid stunts the growth of the mitochondria. So with zone 2, we're trying to run slower so that we don't produce lactic acid. However, that has the side effect of we're not pumping the heart as hard, so the rest of the circulatory system kind of falters a bit. So how do we make both worlds work? Well, if you look at say something like bodybuilding and you want to go into one of those competitions, there are two main aspects you're going to have. You're going to bulk. You got to take in all the nutrients, all the building blocks you need to build up your muscles and whatnot. And then once you go through a bulking session, you cut. You then can start working on individual muscle groups, molding the nutrients, all the intake you've taken into the form you want it to be. Then you bulk again, you cut. You bulk, you cut. That's how that system generally works. So I treat zone 2 pretty much the same way. Right now, we've just completed the first of 3 weeks I'm going to use to bulk my mitochondria growth by doing nothing but zone 2 running. I'm going ridiculously slow right now. As of this recording, I've done 4 weekouts this week. After this, I'm going to do my 5th one to finish out the week. And prior to this, the first 2 weeks, my runs had ranged from a 7:11 was actually my fastest run as a 3-miler. My slowest one I did was a 7:29 pace. My runs this past week during the zone 2 have ranged from a 9:50 on the fast end to a 10:09 on the slow end. So we have slowed things way down to get this to work. And I have 2 more weeks I'm going to be doing this on of purely the zone 2. I'm going to get the mitochondria. I'm going to bulk that up, get the quantity of get the density of that going before we move on. So where do we go from this? Because I'm not going to be doing just zone 2 for the next 3 months. We're going to be adding more stuff to this. So there are a bunch of different systems you can use. The one I'm going to be using is the 80-20, or an approximation of 80-20, which is that 80% of the workouts starting pretty much, it's going to be the first week of January. So in 2 more weeks, we're going to start with January 7th or whatever that week is, or 5th, I don't know. I'll have to look at a calendar, whatever that week is. Once I finish these 3 weeks, I'm going to go into the 80-20. And what it is going to be 80% of the time I'm going to be running, it's going to be zone 2. is going to be the really, really slow. The other 20%, I want to jump up into zone 4. Now, we got to skip zone 3 because zone 3 is where you start going faster, but you're not really pushing the body as hard as it needs to go. Zone 4 is going to be going roughly 90% of that, whatever the heart rate range I mentioned before, where I have like a 180 on the, roughly at 180 on the top side. I had roughly 50 on the bottom side, so I had 130 beat range I was going from. So for the 20% of the time I'm going to be going fast, I want to stay at around 90% of that range. So if I have 130 beats per minute as my range, I want to be in that roughly 13 beats from my absolute max. So that'll be around 167 then, would be my heart rate for where I want to do the extra 20%. Now that seems really, really simple, not that part of it, but it's still 80% of it is going to be going stupid slow. That's really, really easy. Why do we mess that? We can go faster than that. We don't need to go slow the whole time. It works until you start doing the math. So if you think that's, when I first did this last year, whatever it was, a couple years ago, when I started doing these, it seemed like it was going to be really easy. Oh, 20%, it's nothing. So let's just take a hypothetical week. We're going to have 30 miles this week. I'm not doing. I'm going to go into what I'm actually doing. But let's just say, for hypothetically speaking, we have 30-mile run I want to do this week, and I want to do a long, slow distance one of like say 12 miles on Saturday at the end. So that one I just want to be zone 2. Keep it nice and easy. That's going to be that. Well, we have 2 recovery. Like I said, I'm always going to have 3 real workouts per week, and then I'm going to fill in with recovery runs in between. So if I have 5 runs, I'm going to have 2 of those going to be recovery runs. They're going to be little 3-mile runs. So now I have a 12-mile run, which is long, slow distance. I'm going to have 2 recovery runs of, say, just 3 miles apiece. So we're up to 18 miles now. So that leaves 12 miles to go on the other 2 runs, with which I can put 20% of that 30, which is 6 of those miles now would need to be zone 4. On top of that, we're not going to go out the door and just poof, right at zone 4. We're going to need a little bit of a warm-up to get in there. So let's say we have a mile warm-up on each of those 2 runs. So now that leaves 5 miles apiece on each of those 2, because we would need to do, say, 2 6-milers to get in. That's going to leave now 2 5-mile segments on those runs, with which to do an average of 3 of those miles now need to be zone 4. Now, if you want to have it cool down at the end a little bit, that's going to eat into it even more. So now, all of a sudden, what seemed like it's going to be really easy, you're now blasting through these things. If you want to do a ladder workout type thing, where you like, say, run a quarter mile, jog a quarter, like sprint half mile, kind of jog half mile, sprint 3/4 mile, jog 3/4, kind of a 50-50 deal, all of a sudden that no longer works. You don't have enough real estate distance-wise to make that work in those. So all of a sudden you realize, I can't push this just on the little ones. We do need to use some speed in those long workouts we do. So it does wind up being more work that way than you first think it's going to be to try to hit that goal of the 80-20. But in addition to that, like I said, this is zone 2 is part of a broader scheme. So the first part is we do want to bring more speed in. Now, the other reason, one main reason we want to bring this more speed in is so we don't lose the raw speed that we already have. If you only do zone 2 workouts, you, like as I had mentioned in the last session, you will get slower. Now, there's a caveat on that. If you only do zone 2, when I first started doing these things, way back when, I was going roughly a 10-minute mile was my pace for zone 2. And as my season went on, I had brought that down to, while keeping the heart rate at the exact same it was, I had brought that down to about a 920, a little under 920. So on the zone 2 end of things, you will get faster. Your heart will get used to doing this. You will build the mitochondria, and you will get faster at performing at the level that you are. like I said, what's going to happen is with the more mitochondria, yes. If I'm keeping that 140 beats per minute, I will be able to perform more work at the same heart range. However, I'm not going to be able to sprint as fast as I could before. I'm not going to be able to do a quarter mile, a half mile, a 1 mile, a 3 mile run, a 5K as fast as I could because my top end of my speed range is now going to collapse because I'm not pushing my heart as hard during the zone 2 things. My circulatory system stuff is going to collapse on itself, and I'm not going to be able to keep up the raw speed that I could before. So it's great for distance, long, slow kind of distance things, but it falls apart on the raw speed aspect. So after these first 3 weeks, I now want to reintroduce speed aspects so I don't lose the upper end that I have. So this is why I want to bring back into these shorter speed things. I may be doing tempo runs. I may be bringing back the ladder runs. I may be doing just straight speed ones. This is why I want to now reintroduce that 80-20 into it. Like I said, after another 2 weeks of these slow ones, we're going to start introducing that. On top of that, although I'm usually not a very good source for this, we do want to start bringing in some kind of gym workout into the mix once or twice a week for like half hour. You start doing some kind of runner-based kind of lifting things. You can do, again, I would look up more things online for this. I tend to be really bad because of my job. I tend to be going up and down ladders a lot. I'm bending down, lifting up, sitting down, coming back up. I'm a builder by nature, so I tend to use my job kind of to fix this, to kind of fill this slot. But you want to spend at least 1 or 2 times per week, say half hour, 20-minute half hour sessions of like focus on your calves, focus on your quads, focus on your hamstrings, focus on your glutes, do kind of individual kind of lifting exercises to kind of target each of those zones, and that will help you keep the gains you're getting much better as well. So it's not just zone 2. We are adding speed. We are adding some lifting elements. We're not trying to bulk. We don't want to bulk. Last thing we want to do is bulk. If you're doing like a sprint or super distance, bulking can be really good because that can give you more muscle to blast through obstacles and all that great. Once we get into the beast and ultra distances on these Spartan events, once we get into half marathon distance, marathon, ultra marathon type stuff, bulking is actually kind of a net negative for us because that's just more weight we have to carry with us when we're going up the hills. It's more weight we need to lift up over if we're trying to go over like a 7-foot, 8-foot wall. It's more weight we're going to be hanging on our hands if we're doing like monkey bars or twister or beater or any of those types of things. So straight up bulking isn't the goal. We want to be more toned than having any additional weight we're going to bring with us. But that's a different discussion for a different time. This time I just wanted to show, yes, I'm going to be doing the 80-20. There are other methods we can use. A lot of them get compared to 80-20, and that's not because 80-20 is bad, because again, you can look at, like, I've heard the Norwegian method you can do, which I haven't really looked at. You can look at like what the Kenyans, Ethiopians, and those types of the known distance runner kind of areas, what they do out there. They have their own system, but they kind of get compared to 80-20, not because it's bad, but it's a solid training plan that works. It's like when we were growing up back in like the 90s or like early 2000s, and you're like playing video games, you're like the Doom killer or like the Halo killer. This game's gonna be the Halo killer. It's like, it's not because Doom or Halo were bad. It's because they were the standard bearers of the time that other games would be compared to. So that's kind of what the 80-20 is. It's not like it's a bad thing. It's the standard bearer of what a lot of other workout and running kind of plans get based off of. That said, for this particular week, last week I got my 4 runs in. We had finished that. Now, this past week then, I slowed things down. I will get my 5th run in after this. I've gone roughly 18 miles in this past week. Next week I'm going to bump it up to 20, which I'm thinking, thank goodness I can finally increase distance on stuff. I'll be honest, I'm getting sick of running these same loops kind of over and over. I want to get more distance in here. So I'm going to introduce I'm still going to do 5. I'm going to try to get 5 workouts per weekend next week. It's Christmas week. That may not happen. It may turn into 4. If I do miss one, it's going to probably be a recovery run one. I want to keep my core 3 at least working out well for me. So if I do jump down to 4 workouts rather than 5, it'll probably be knocking off one of those recovery runs. But that said, to get this 20, 2 runs, like I said, recovery runs are always going to be 3 miles. I'm just going to keep those 3 miles apiece. So no matter what distance I'm doing for now until like get to like 30, 35 miles, those 2 runs are always going to be 3. So I can just knock that off. So now I have 14 miles to do the other 3 runs in. The one I want to do on the weekend, I finally want to do a distance run. So that's going to be about a 10K. So that'll then knock 6 miles off of that. So that means for the other 2 runs, they're going to be at 4 miles apiece. So I'm still generally doing what I was the last few weeks, but I do want to get one distance run in. And this will be the first of a series of distance runs that I'm going to carry throughout the rest of this training session. So the way I'm going to treat my distance runs is every other week I will bump my distance run up by 2 miles. So this week I will do a 6 miler, which is going to wind up being a 10K, just what my loop winds up being, 6.2. In 2 weeks after that, I will do an 8 miler. 2 weeks after that, I'm going to do a 10 miler. 2 weeks after that, it's going to be a 12. And we're going to use this as the baseline that I'm progressing as I go. I'm not skipping stuff. If I can keep doing this, we're good. Then the interim every other week that kind of doesn't have one of those, we can then fall back and usually my kind of, not my weekday runs will then kind of increase in distance a little bit. Rather than do like 4 miles on these. Next week that might turn into 5 miles for the weekdays. And then my distance run next week's probably going to be 5 anyway, because I can't fall back from 10K too far. It's easier to fall back from like a 14, a 12, a 10 miler into something shorter than it is to fall back from a 6 miler into something smaller. But the idea is this week I bump out, next week I bring back. The week after I go out a little further, the week after I come back. So this week is going to be 6, next week might be 5. I'll go out 8 the following week, then I might come back 7 the next one, it'll be 10 the after. And we're going to keep doing it in that method. And like I said, for the next 2, this one and the one after, is still going to be completely the zone 2. We're gonna get this mitochondria going, and it's gonna be fun. And now I'm rambling and saying the same thing over and over. So I'm just gonna stop it right there. And like I said, hopefully next week we're gonna go into something that's not necessarily running oriented, because we've probably had enough running stuff. We are ultimately getting ready for a long obstacle course that takes place on hills and all that. So we got to do something that kind of goes towards that effect at some point. I want to keep your interest. This isn't just a running channel. So look forward to that next time. We are getting somewhere. And until then, and like always, enjoy.